the cheese making again. I'm being a little more adventurous this time around, I guess. You can hear me over the splashing milk. I'm going to try making triple creme, which is a white mold rind cheese like Camembert or Brie, or one of those types of cheeses. In the past, I have made, or tried to make, when I had goats, that type of a cheese. The white rind is a mold called Penicillium candidum. And when I had my little cheese-making supply company, little mail order company, is one of the molds that I sold. I guess with the recipes that I did, you mixed it with water and sprayed it on the outside of the cheese, and I had some success, but I wasn't terribly pleased with it. Well, this one, it gets inoculated into the milk, which is different, so we will see what happens. Anyway, the cheese can be eaten when it's only a few days old, or you leave it to ripen for 5 to 6 weeks, and that's when it will form the crust of the white mold. So I plan to do both if I get a couple out of this, and I should get 2 or 3, I guess. What I've done here is supposed to be a gallon of whole milk. I'm using metric for my milk, so it is 4 liters. That worked with another recipe that I did, so I'm hoping it doesn't make much difference this time. It's just slightly more than a U.S. gallon, and these recipes, as I've said in the past, are all from a U.S. company, so they're in the English system and Fahrenheit for degrees and whatever. This will get heated to 86 degrees, and at the same time heating a pint of heavy cream, whipping cream. This one is 35% butter fat, so it's a very heavy cream, and that is a pint. And on the Canadian side, it says it's 473 milliliters. Obviously, they just converted the old pint containers to metric, and that gets heated to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It says that milk and cream will amalgamate and join together better if they're both warm, so that's the reason for heating the cream along with the milk. So I'll bring you back when I have both of these up to temperature. We're getting there, but we're not quite ready yet, but I want to show you this. Hopefully that's in focus and you can read it. I bought this set of measuring spoons. They're very small measuring spoons to use. I bought them from the cheese-making supply company to use in making cheeses, to measure small amounts of things out. And you see this silly description here: a tad is 1/4 of a teaspoon, a dash is 1/8, a pinch is a 1/16, a smidgen is a 32nd. Well, that's humorous. However, that's the only markings that they put on the spoons, and that is silly. There's nothing on them anywhere that tells you what the... Just checking to make sure there is writing on the back, but no, there's nothing on them anywhere to tell you what the actual spoon measures. So if you lost this label, these spoons would be useless. That's just me ranting and raving here. Almost ready. I'll be back in a minute when everything has warmed to the proper temperature. When everything is up to temperature, the 4 liters of whole milk is at 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And the cream, heavy cream, a pint of heavy cream, is at 100 degrees, and you combine them. It seems to have combined quite well. I don't see where the cream has come to the top, so I guess they know what they're talking about. If they're both warm, they combine better. To that you add a 1/4 teaspoon of calcium chloride, liquid calcium chloride. Again, I bought this from the cheese making company. Mixed in a 1/4 cup of, for me, tap water, but any dechlorinated water, bottled water or whatever, if you're in the city and your water's been chlorinated and fluorinated and whatever else. Mine isn't, it's just here in the out of the well. And the culture is a buttermilk culture. If you use this little envelope of use this little envelope of buttermilk culture in a liter of milk and put it in the Yogotherm or something like that to keep it warm. It's 86 degrees, and to keep it that way, in 24 hours or so you'd have a liter of cultured buttermilk. And it is the main culture that's used in making triple creme. And the idea is to let that hydrate for a couple of minutes on the surface. And you add to that Penicillium candidum. If I could find my little plastic bag here somewhere so I would know which one of these I should use. The pinch, 1/16 of a teaspoon of Penicillium candidum. So on these foolish spoons, if I can get to it, that would be a pinch. And Penicillium candidum is the only mold that I used, and I think other than Roquefort, which is the blue mold, I think it's the only one that I used to sell. But there's another one that gets added here in just a second. Here's a pinch, or a 1/16. And the next one is half a smidgen, I guess. The smallest spoon here is what they're calling a smidgen, 1/32 of a teaspoon. And what I need is 1/64 of a teaspoon of this next mold, which is Geotrichium candidum. And I don't believe that I actually sold that one. I think that is something new to the trade, or something that I didn't know about back when I had my little company anyway. And it will benefit the Penicillium candidum, help it to grow better, but also it says that it will make the mold adhere better to the surface of the cheese so that it doesn't slip off when you're cutting the cheese, whatever. Now both of those are just allowed to hydrate for a minute or so here, and then I will stir them in. And once it has been stirred in, you leave it to ripen for an hour. So I'm thinking that the culture, the buttermilk culture, has been there for a couple of minutes, so I'll do some stirring here, I guess. Now I will cover it to help retain the heat. And set the timer for an hour. We'll come back in an hour's time. Well, the hour has just started. I'm not ready to do anything else yet, but as you probably have already noticed, when I edit this particular video, I will add the names of the ingredients and the amount. I'll put those across the screen each time that I add something, because this cheese is probably the most complicated one that I've made so far, but it's still listed in there, easy cheese to make. We'll see how easy it is in a few weeks' time, I guess. But anyway, each one of the ingredients, to get the spelling and the quantity and whatever, I'll put that across the screen. Well, the milk and cultures have ripened for an hour, and now you add a 1/4 teaspoon of 1% rennet. There goes my beeper. That was the hour, I guess. 1% rennet, a 1/4 teaspoon, mixed into a 1/4 cup of dechlorinated water. And with an up and down motion for a minute or so, you mix that in. Make sure it's evenly distributed. we'll say that's evenly distributed. The next part is to let the rennet and the cultures set for an hour and a half undisturbed. So I'll see you back here in 90 minutes. Back again 90 minutes later, and it is time to cut the curd. And it also says if the temperature has dropped a bit, and mine has dropped a couple of degrees, to heat it gently again to bring it back up to 86 degrees. And I think we have a soft curd there, which you can see. I've got the thermometer in it, which I'm going to take out while I'm cutting, but it is rising again, so I've got it on very low heat. I bought myself a curd cutting knife, which it turns out is a frosting spatula, and I've been joking with Sheila, one of my subscribers who watches all of my videos and comments here, that is 14-inch spatula. What would you be frosting, 100-pound cake with it? I don't know. But anyway, it'll work well as a cheap curd cutting knife. The first process here is to cut a checkerboard pattern, roughly a ½ inch apart. Which is slow, and I'm sure to you people watching, fairly boring. Should also mention that the recipe and instructions that I'm following here are free online, so I will put a link to the website and the instructions down below this video for anybody who wants to give this a try. It's the cheesemaking.com website, but I can put a link specifically to these instructions. They have the instructions on there, I think, for 100 different kinds of cheeses to make, so if I get brave enough, I may carry on and do a few more. Trying to select the ones that are relatively easy. This one is, well, the most difficult one that I've attempted so far anyway. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's all that difficult, but because it goes through an aging process for several weeks, and that has to be at a certain temperature and humidity, and they give you some ways of doing that relatively easily, but this is definitely a little bit more difficult than some of the other ones that I've been making. Hope that it works. Almost finished my checkerboard here. Okay, now that rests for 5 minutes, and during that 5-minute period I'll check the temperature again, but see you in 5 minutes. Well, I think I might have unnecessarily made my cuts a little too narrow on that last step. It says 1 inch, and I was thinking ½ inch. The last cheese that I made was ½ inch. Anyway, now you do the horizontal cuts with the cheese ladle, and going down 1 inch or so each time. Okay, that was interesting. The power just went off. Oh, it's back. What that meant, I don't know. It is blowing quite hard outdoors. That should be 1 revolution, I guess. We'll go down a little bit more. And the 3rd time here. Hear me whistling in the background here. Not any particular tune, believe me. every time I circle around, I'm trying to put it down at least another inch. It gets more difficult to do as you get close to the bottom. Which I guess I must be getting fairly close to the bottom now. Yeah, I just felt the bottom on one side there. That is right on the bottom. Okay. Now that is allowed to set once again for 5 minutes. We've been setting for 5 minutes, and I've checked the temperature. I've got it back up. The next thing you do is stir gently for 10 minutes. So I must start the timer, I guess, or I won't know when 10 minutes is up here. And I won't make you sit here and watch me stir for 10 minutes. The idea here is the gentle stirring removes more of the whey from the curds. So I will stir for 10 minutes and then come back. Well, I gently stirred for 10 minutes, and now it has been resting for 3 or 4 minutes. And the idea here is to try to remove some of the whey with a ladle. I'm not so sure how much that's going to work. I'm getting solids in with it, and I don't want to lose any of the curds. So the next process after this is to put it into a colander lined with cheesecloth and to let it drain for half hour. And I suspect I'm going to do it whey and all, because I'm getting the curds. They haven't sunk very far below the surface, so maybe it's supposed to drain for half hour. If it's still dripping at the end of the half hour, I'll let it drain a little longer, I guess. And that is just my oblong shaped colander lined with butter muslin, more than is needed. It's 3 or 4 layers thick because I don't want to cut it. Yeah, I don't see how I would have skimmed off very much of that whey. The way my whey is, if you see what I mean. Anyway, it says for 30 minutes to let it drain, so I will come back in 30 minutes. If I think it's ready to remove, I'll put it in the molds. If not, I'll let it drain a little longer. But I'm encouraged. There seems to be a lot of curd there. I was worried that there was a lot of the milk solid still in the whey, but there seems to be quite a bit of curd has developed. So far so good, hopefully. So the cheese curd has drained for 30 minutes, and probably a bit more than 30 minutes. I had to go out for a while, and when I come back the timer was already beeping. The next phase is to put it into molds. 3 to 4 small molds, it says. Well, they don't tell you what a small mold is. I had bought these sort of basket molds, and by the looks of things, maybe this is going to fill 1 or 2. Of course, I guess I wouldn't have to fill them right to the brim. Curd is fairly dry. There is some whey coming out immediately into the bottom. Those molds are sitting on cheese drying mats, plastic mats, and everything is inside of a stainless steel container. You don't want to use anything that's reactive at all, iron or aluminum or whatever. You want to use only stainless steel. Or you could use enameled, I guess, as long as the enamel was intact, no places where it had cracked, so it would get into contact with the metal below the enamel. Well, I think this is just going to do 2 of my molds, I guess. I'll have to fool around here for a few minutes to get the rest of the curd that's stuck on the cheesecloth. But the next part of the process here is this goes kept in a room that is between 70 and 74 degrees temperature, and I don't keep most of my house that warm, so I'm moving it upstairs to what I call the grow room, where my grow lights are, because with the door closed there I can regulate the temperature and get it up correctly. And in the next 24 hours the cheeses are taken out of the mold and turned 3 times. So I will bring you back. First time will be 6 hours from now, and in the end, when you finish, the cheese will be roughly half the thickness that it is now. So they're not going to be terribly thick. I don't know, maybe I should put that all in one mold. I'm not certain. I'll think about that and show you what I do when I come back in 6 hours' time, I guess. The instructions said that you could flip the cheese anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. I'm just trying to figure out an overnight schedule here, so I'm going with 4 hours for the first one. But I thought before I clean this tray up, I thought I would show you the amount of whey that came out of it in 4 hours, if that's visible there. I'm going to rinse the tray out and rinse off these cheese mats, and we'll be right back. Well, the tray has been rinsed out and the mats have been rinsed off. I washed my hands and dried them thoroughly because I don't want to leave any soap flavor in there. Let's see how this works, I guess. One down. Second one out of the mold, anyway. I'm scared of breaking them in pieces, so no, that's not so bad, I guess. The mold that I'm using is sort of slightly wedge shaped. It's smaller on the bottom than it is on the top, so I don't know if the cheese, now that it's been molded down into there again, if it will now take the shape of it again, or what's going to happen there. The one that they showed in their photographs on the online place that you can look at were cylindrical, but the one in the paper that I had from them was sort of, well, they were square, but again they were sort of wedge shaped. It was smaller on the bottom, so hopefully everything will be alright. I can see whey coming out here already. So that was at 4 hours. It's now 6:30 in the evening. Well, if that means anything too much, I guess, but I think what I will do is around midnight I will do it again, and then I'll leave it overnight and do the final one in the morning when I get up, because it will continue in the molds without doing anything else to it. After you do the third flipping, it will continue until the 24 hours are up, and that's 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. So we'll see you at midnight. 12:30 a.m. and I'm playing with my cheese again. So let's show you how much has accumulated. More whey has come out, so I guess that's a good thing. I will clean that up and then come back when it's time to flip the cheeses over. And here goes nothing once again. It seemed to be a little more solid than it was the last time. coming out of the mold a bit easier too. Oops. Well, and back it goes for overnight. Flip it one more time in the morning and then let it drain until the 24 hours are up at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon. Well, good morning, everybody. I left them in this time to show you what it looks like here. If I can get that. It is still giving off some of the whey, but nowhere near as much. And this time it was 8 a.m., so it was a longer period of time. So we'll do the final flip for this phase before we move on to the salting phase here. Emptied out and rinsed the stainless steel pan again. They have shrunk down, oh well, a lot I guess from the initial cheese when we started there, but still a decent size. I suppose when they're salted that will cause more of the rind to come out. We'll find that out later today, I guess, anyway. They certainly flip much easier now, and I'm pleased to say that the baskets with their sort of smaller base than top hasn't been a problem. I think that's probably a good idea. It sort of shapes the outside of the cheese nicely, and I don't know if that nice basket effect will stay on the top when it starts to grow the mold or not. But there they are anyway, flip for the final time. Well, it's now been 24 hours since the curd was first put in the molds, and this last ever how many hours that's been, what, six and a half hours, something like that, since I did the last flipping of them. There's a little bit of whey, as you can see there, I guess. Not a great deal has come out, but I will clean that up and then we'll salt the cheese for the first time. Well, the instructions for salting it the first time, it's salted twice. This first time, and then 8 hours later it'll be salted again. The instructions are to take a teaspoon of cheese salt and divide it amongst however how many cheeses you made, and the instructions said this would have made 4 small cheeses. So I don't know what I've got here, medium cheeses I guess. Anyway, a half teaspoon of salt for each one of them, so I've measured out a half teaspoon in 2 of these little dishes. And the first time of salting, the salt gets put on the top and the sides, just rubbed in. Guess that explains, I was wondering earlier if the pattern that the basket is made on the surface of the cheese, if that would be there when it what's the word I'm looking for, when the mold starts to grow on it. I don't think it's going to be, because I'm rubbing it off when I'm salting. Okay. Well, there's one, just the top and the sides, and it goes back in the same way it came out, top up. Might as well do the second one, I guess. And I think I said earlier that this might cause some of the whey to come out, and it may, I don't know, one way or the other here. But also, salt acts as a disinfectant in a way. Handling these cheeses, flipping them and whatever, there could be some sort of bacteria on your hands, and the salt will kill that, so that there's no competing with the mold that we're trying to get to grow on the surface of the cheese. So By the time the mold develops on the inside and comes out, most of the salt will have been leached away with the whey that's going to come out of it. I keep using whey in several ways in a sentence here. But anyway, this now goes back in the room at the same temperature, anywhere from 70 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 hours. And what I haven't been saying is this is winter, of course. You're watching this video for the first time, but today is the first full day of winter, the 22nd of December. So I started them yesterday on the 21st. And it's looking to me like that's an ideal time for me to be making this kind of cheese here. I did some experimenting before I started making the cheese with temperatures in the room, the grow room where I'm setting these to control the heat in there. And when I shut the heat completely off in there, I can get the lower temperature that's going to be required for aging it. And that will be happening or starting tomorrow, the day after. I forget all the different steps in here. And I can also bring the temperature up to this higher temperature that I need for this first salting and early ripening of the cheese. So I wouldn't be able to do that in the summertime. The room would always be warm, but by shutting the heat off with the winter temperatures outside, it will cool down and I can regulate the temperature better. So we'll know when I finish this if we actually get anything out of it that can be eaten. But I think as far as getting the correct temperature, and I'll show you in the future step here how the humidity is kept up as well. But that's it for 8 hours. In 8 hours time we'll be back. Well, there wasn't very much whey at all this time, maybe a tablespoon or so, and I've already rinsed it out. The instructions now are to do the same thing as I did the previous time, with a teaspoon of salt divided amongst the two cheeses, but this time the salt goes on the bottom of the cheese and again on the sides. It doesn't say to flip the cheese, it just says to put it back in the mold. So what I'm going to do is not flip it, I guess. Doesn't say to flip it or not to flip it, so. I'll put it in bottom down. The top doesn't get any additional salt added to it. It's quite firm, getting firmer every time I take it out and hold on to it. You can see what I'm doing here or not. Just put as much as I could put around the edges and then I'll rub it in. And now it goes back in the room at the same temperature, 70 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit, and this time for 12 hours. So it's now 10:30 p.m. 10:30 tomorrow morning. We'll move on to the next phase. Well, we're getting into the final stages of production here anyway. Now it's the aging process. This is a food quality, supposedly airtight container. And the first thing you do is to dry the cheese, it said, and that can take from 4 to 12 hours in a humidity of 65 to 75%. And a temperature of 58 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, some time ago I turned the heat down in the grow room and I opened a window for a while, and I have it down to 65 in there, so the temperature is correct. Put the cheeses on drying mats. These are a couple of clean drying mats. Until they have dried somewhat, I will leave the cover in just a jar like that so that there will be relatively high humidity in there. And the following phase after that is the aging of the cheese. And you lower the room temperature to 52 to 58. So I've got the thermostat in there now set at around 10 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 50, but I'll watch it to make sure that the room doesn't go below 52. And by closing the container tightly, an airtight container, that should increase the humidity inside to 90 or 95% humidity. And it says after a week you should start to see the white mold starting to grow on the surface of the cheese. And it is, if you want to eat it fresh, in 3 or 4 days' time, once the salt has stabilized, they can be eaten fresh. Since I only have 2, I think what I'm going to do is wait and see some mold growing. So I won't do another clip of when I put the lid on in a few hours' time. That really isn't necessary. But sometime in a week to 10 days from now, I will open it up and see if we have mold starting to grow. And the aging process to get the mold to completely cover the cheese can take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So at some point after that I will determine when I want to try these things. Hopefully this works, but we'll know. Anyway, I'll bring you back for another clip in a week to 10 days from now. Tempus fugit. It is now a week later, and there has been some wonderful things happening to these 2 cheeses. Hopefully it'll show up on camera. If I zoom in there, will that show the... Hopefully that shows the mold that has started to grow. You can see where it's all fuzzy around the edge here and across the top of both of these. That started within 3 days or so, I think, of putting them in the room in this sealed container, high humidity. I had a panic attack. I sent Andy at McDowell Manor in Australia. Andy is a cheese maker, has got several very good videos on making cheese. Sent him an email, and I sent New England Cheese Company, they have a department that will answer your questions there, sent them an email. When it first started growing the mold was growing down through these cheese mats, and it is supposed to stay on the cheese mat so that air circulates the whole way around it. Anyway, the first time I turned it, it was tearing mold off of the cheese and leaving it on the cheese mat, and that got me concerned. Both Andy and the people at New England Cheese Making told me the same thing, turn them more frequently. So since then I've been turning them about once a day. The mold that had come off has grown back. You can sort of see, if you pick that up here and up, that's the imprint of the cheese mat there. Anyway, this is at the 1 week stage. At the 2nd week stage, a week from now, I will be wrapping them in a special cheese paper, which, according to the delivery notice, is in my mail today. I haven't gone to pick it up yet. And then it will continue to age for another 4 to 6 weeks. At the 4-week period, I will open one of them and see what I think of it and leave the second one. Once you open one, according to what I've been reading a book written by the lady who owns New England Cheese Making, and discovered several things that I did wrong. But so far my mistakes seem to have been overcome, unless something is happening there that I'm not aware of. But I will be wrapping them, and then they age for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, as I said. But once you cut into one of them, according to what I've been reading, that's it for the aging. It doesn't age anymore once you break the surface on it or whatever. So the one that I try at 4 weeks will just have to be refrigerated and eaten, whether it's ready to be eaten or not. Well, you can eat it right now, actually, as a fresh cheese. So see you in a week's time when we wrap these. Well, the cheese has now been aging for 2 weeks and has a very good covering of the white mold on all sides. And it's time to wrap it. I have a problem here. Evidently these are an odd size because I didn't use a camembert mold. So I have 2 sizes of paper. The medium-sized paper is too small, and this is the large-sized paper, which is too large. So I'm going to go with too large. This too large will cover it. It won't be as bad as it being too small, I guess. Yeah, I have some tape here somewhere. Papers, if you believe all of the stuff that they've got written on the package, is intelligent paper. The side that you're seeing is the shiny side, and the other side, the dull side, has wax on it, paraffin wax, and is actually paper. This shiny side isn't paper, obviously, it's plastic, but it says that the wax side will absorb moisture during the first period of aging, wrapped, and during the latter stage it will give that moisture back to the cheese as it needs it. So hopefully they know what they're talking about. And that is number one wrapped. I'll wrap the other one. Just for the fun of it, I'll weigh it. They're both roughly the same size, but I haven't weighed them before, so we'll see what one weighs. This is in grams. Wrapper and all in grams is 399 grams. That is 14.1 ounces, so 14 ounces or 399, 400 grams. So that's the size of them. It's wrapped well enough, I guess. I just would rather have had a paper that actually fit it, but it doesn't. But now what I want to show you is my latest acquisition. These are no longer going up into a cold room upstairs. I have purchased a small refrigerator and another thermostat that will bring the temperatures down to the temperature needed for aging cheese. So I'll show you that in just a moment here. You don't need to see me wrap a second cheese, but, and heavens knows this video is getting long enough as it is, but I'm doing this again because I want something I forgot to say. I've been in conversation with Andy, McDowell Manor channel on YouTube several times, and as you from earlier things that I have said here, I plan to let these age for 4 to 6 weeks, which would be early February. And Andy's suggestion is to try one around the 21st of the month. I'm not certain now if he said that if they age too long, if they get bitter or sour, or anyway, the flavor goes downhill once it has aged for too long a period of time. So it's best to try it when it's maybe too young than it is when it's too old. So I will be trying one on the 21st. Thought I had tape there, but I haven't. I'll try one on the 21st, and as I've said before, these can be eaten at this stage right now anyway. They would be fresher, that's all. So on the 21st, we'll know whether I can take them both out or just eat one of them. Now, isn't that a thing of beauty? It even has blue LED lights inside of it. Got it from Costco, ordered it online. I thought the price was quite reasonable. $209 Canadian, and that included shipping, plus tax, of course, the HST on top of that. But no matter where you bought it, if you brought it across the border, I'd have to pay the HST on it. And I have been, well, the better part of 24 hours getting it regulated, and I guess I do have it regulated now. The internal thermostat, which is in any refrigerator, is not being used. This over here is a special thermostat that I bought from the New England cheese making company, and you plug the refrigerator into the same outlet that goes into the wall. It has an extra place to plug the refrigerator in once you've plugged this in, and the dial on top, you select the temperature that you want. Well, it's not 100% accurate, I guess, but I finally got it so that it's operating in the range that I wanted to operate in, between 52 degrees Fahrenheit and 58 degrees Fahrenheit. And it seems right now to be cycling at around, well, it comes back on when it's up at 58, and it cools it down to below 54, so that's good enough. And I have a cheap thermometer hydrometer in there that I bought the other day. And I'm keeping the cheese with the white mold in a sealed container just because of something that I've read. It said that in a cheese refrigerator like this, it's easy for that mold to spread, and when you're doing other kinds of cheese, it will, well, wouldn't destroy the cheese, but it'll start growing on the other kind of cheeses, so I'm keeping it in a sealed container. This was on sale at True Value Hardware. They're stackable, it's just 2 drawers, but it's a good place to store all of my cheese making equipment anyway, other than the things that need to be refrigerated or frozen, all of the molds and whatever that I have so far, and the citric acid and the cheese salt and the wrapping papers and all that good stuff. Anyway, let's look at my new acquisition, and I'm very pleased with it. Well, here we are, the moment of truth, I guess. This is exactly a month from the day that I started the cheese. And I'm going to try the first one. I suspect they are ripe enough, if not too ripe, I don't know. Andy said that the center was a bit soft, that probably meant that they were ripe enough. Anyway, I've taken this one out of the cheese fridge. I'm going to give it a try, see what we think of it here. Working from behind a camera is never terribly easy. Ooh. Very soft. And a lovely flavor. I'm very pleased with that. I did read some comments about that second mold, other than the Penicillium candidum, the one that I can't pronounce or remember right now, about it making the cheese extra soft. This has not been really refrigerated, it's been in the cheese refrigerator, which is going from around 54 Fahrenheit up to 58 Fahrenheit. I think once refrigerated in the regular refrigerator, it will become more solid, but it is delicious. I don't love my fingers. And I will definitely take the other one out and refrigerate both of them now. Well, as I'm sure has been evident as we've been doing this, I am no cheese making expert. I don't wish to come across as one, so if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them. I just received a cheese press that I ordered, a Dutch cheese press. I'm going to move on soon to making some sort of a hard cheese, maybe Gouda or something first. But I must admit I'm very pleased with the way this turned out, and it's taken a full month to get to this stage. I think, I don't know, several days ago I probably could have stopped this from aging any further, but it is delicious and will be enjoyed, and thank you very much for watching this very long video. But as you know, the video is a recording of a month's worth of progress here on the making of this Triple Creme Cheese. Thank you for watching.